What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now today I have a full review on this boot right here, the Adidas F50 Elite. Now it's been a while since I did my first impression as well as the playtest video, and I have been using this boot, but because I have other boots to like test and wear, it just, it takes a while for me to get my like full thoughts on this boot and to like fully test them out. And just because I like taking my time with them, I like actually wearing them, using them at the field and stuff like that. And because I just had a lot of boots like that I've been testing, like the Razor, the Skechers SKX01, the Vapors, the Morelias. So there has been a lot of boots. So it's kind of, I have to like make time for all of them. But I'm finally ready to give my thoughts about this boot. And I honestly think this is a really good boot from Adidas. I feel like it improves a lot from the Adidas X Crazy Fast. Like this F50 for sure is way better than the Crazy Fast, the Plus and the Point 1 in my opinion. So in this video, I'm just going to give my opinions on the Adidas F50, talk about the performance, the fit, the feel, the sole plate stud pattern, stuff like that. Before we start the video, if you guys could like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. Alright, and first we'll talk about the upper. This is a Fiber Touch upper, and it's pretty soft, nice and pliable. It's way better than the Adidas X Crazy Fast Point 1. Like that upper was just a little bit more plasticky. This one does have a bit of a softer feel on feet, and you guys can see it is more pliable. And in the beginning, like straight out of the box, it does have a bit more of a plasticky feel. But once you start wearing them, once you break them in, the upper just gets really soft and pliable, and they're just super comfortable on feet. Like this upper, like I said, it's just a good improvement coming from the X.1. And I actually never did a comparison video between those two boots, but let me know if you guys would like to see that. But yeah, this upper is not the thinnest upper that Adidas has ever made. The X Crazy Fast Plus is way thinner than that. This one just has a little bit more thickness to it. Like it's not overly thick either. Like there is like it's still pretty thin, but there's just a little bit more like thickness to it, which I don't mind. It still feels pretty good. You still get a nice barefoot touch on the ball. On the upper, you do get a little bit of texture here in this like sprint web. That's what they're calling this texture, and it is pretty noticeable. You guys can hear it. Hopefully, you guys can hear it. Picks by the mic. But this like texture here, you guys can see it on the form of these lines. It does add, some grip to it. You do feel it. I do notice it, especially when dribbling. Not so much when shooting. And for me, it's a really nice addition. I honestly really like this texture here. Alright, so moving on here in the midfoot, we do have this compression fit tongue, which is pretty thin. And if you tie your laces kind of tight, you do get a little bit of lace biting, I found. Like when I tie my laces super tight, there's just a little bit of lace bite. Not a lot, just a little bit. But I feel like once I do start playing with them, it does. I don't really notice it, just in the beginning maybe. But other than that, it's fine. Just because you guys can see this material is just super, super thin. Like there is no padding to this whatsoever, which is a good thing just because like you don't really notice it so much in terms of like the thickness of it. I was just worried that it was just going to be too much material in the midfoot and it might feel like a little bit bulky or uncomfortable. But because it's super thin, it's just, you don't really notice it. It doesn't really add so much thickness to it, which is a good thing. And for me, I found that this performs really well. Like it does hug your midfoot pretty nicely. Like it's not a super tight fit. It's more like a snug fit. And like I said, it's just like a compression feel. You guys can see here, like these like shiny areas. Like it does stretch, but that kind of restricts the stretch a little bit. And so it just holds your foot like very nicely. And I found in terms of performance, when you're cutting across, you really do feel that compression fit tongue working just because it kind of like holds your foot in place and it doesn't allow your foot to like slide over or to roll over. And so in terms of performance, it performs really well. And in terms of the fit, for me, it fits really nicely. It's not overly narrow and it's not overly wide. It's a good like width in my opinion. And the toe box itself isn't narrow either. You guys can see it has more of a round shape. It doesn't really have a narrow toe box. So for the most part, I feel like the shape is consistent all throughout, which I really like and prefer. I really like this toe box just because my toes don't feel like just they're being squeezed. It's not a narrow toe box. And there's a decent amount of volume. Like the volume is pretty good in my opinion. It doesn't sit too low. It doesn't sit too high. So for me, it's a really good shape. And if you do have a wider foot and you're worried about this compression fit tongue, honestly, you should be fine. If you have a super wide foot, like a massive wide foot, then maybe don't use these. But if you have like a medium width foot, like I do, like I was able to fit in these pretty comfortably. Still has some stretch to it, and so It's gonna feel a little snug, but honestly it doesn't feel like it's squeezing or like super tight on your foot. So for me, it has a good shape and a decent amount of width. And then moving on to the heel, I think the heel on the Adidas F50 is fantastic. It's just super comfortable. It locks in your heel really nicely just because there's a good amount of padding back here. You guys can see the texture lines here, or the texture dots, sorry, but it doesn't really add like grip at all. Like honestly, don't really notice it. You do feel it a little with your fingers, but honestly, I don't think it really does anything. I didn't find any movement up or down or side to side. The heel was super comfortable and it performs really well in my opinion. All right, moving on to the sole plate, and for me, this is an excellent sole plate. I really like this. It's a really nice balance of feeling kind of like responsive, but not overly stiff. Like for me, there's a decent amount of snapback. It's not crazy, but it is responsive, but it still is a little bit flexible, which I really like. So it's a nice like in between feel in my opinion. The midfoot here feels nice and solid, nice and responsive. And the stud pattern for me is excellent just because it's more on the neutral side. You guys get conical studs over here in the midfoot and some blades here in the forefoot as well as the heel. But for me, these like conical studs, well, they're kind of half. They have like a bit of a flat edge on the side. But for me, I'm able to rotate freely, especially on AG. That's where I mainly play. These for me are pretty safe on AG. I could recommend you guys using these on AG. And for FG, like they're not going to be the most aggressive stud pattern like layout on the market just because you do have more conical studs. But you do get these blades, so there is still a little bit of bite. And overall, the Adidas F50 is just a really good boot. It's good all around boot. For me, it just does things right. Like the fit is good. It's comfortable. The upper feels really great. It's nice, soft, and pliable. The sole plate is pretty good for what I like. And for me, like I don't really find anything that's really annoying or like bad about this boot. But for me, I do really like the Adidas F50 Messy Edition just a bit more, just because I do prefer that hybrid touch upper over this one. It just feels a little bit more leather-like. This one's still really good, like I said, but for me, I just prefer that hybrid touch upper on the Adidas F50 Messy. If you guys do want to see a comparison video between this boot and the Adidas F50 Messy, just let me know in the comments and I'll do it. But yeah, that's it for today's video. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you're notified for future videos. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.